Welcome to Past Paradise, where the glitz fades and the shadows speak. In today's jaw-dropping expose, we crack open the vault of old Hollywood's darkest secrets, guided by none other than Burt Lancaster himself. Before his death, the silver screen legend unleashed a scorched earth confession, naming 14 of the most ruthless, manipulative, and morally bankrupt stars of the Golden Age. These weren't just actors, they were power players who weaponized charm, crushed careers, and rewrote fame through betrayal. From Clark Gable's icy ambition to Joan Crawford's behind the scenes, Lancaster's revelations read like a blacklist of charisma gone corrupt. And with newly uncovered documents and insider accounts surfacing, the truth is more twisted than ever. So, buckle up as we peel back the velvet curtain and expose the real cost of stardom in an era where image was everything and integrity was expendable. This isn't nostalgia. This is reckoning. Number 1. Clark Gable. Clark arrived in Hollywood with zero connections and reportedly used people to climb the ladder, like film actress Josephine Dillon, his much older first wife and acting coach. He married her purely for career advancement and left her when he gained success. Clark's early roles typecast him as an aggressive and domineering male. His allegations of controlling behavior and emotional cruelty in relationships. Press created a charming public image, and behind closed doors, he was volatile. MGM covered for Gable repeatedly. Affairs, public drunkenness, and backroom fights. Studio PR machines buried scandals, and including rumors of domestic violence and bisexual affairs. Clark was known for bullying younger actors and treating crew harshly if they didn't defer to him. In 1942, Clark married to actress Carole Lombard, who died in a plane crash during World War II Bond tour. Clark was devastated, and this was perhaps the only relationship he treated with true love and respect. This tragedy humanized him in the public eye, shifting the narrative to heartbroken widower. But after her death, he quickly resumed philandering and reckless behavior. Clark enlisted in World War II out of guilt and patriotism after Lombard's death. He served honorably in the Army Air Forces and became a decorated veteran, but used war credentials as a shield later in life, deflecting criticism. By the late 1940s, Gable's ego was unchecked and reportedly refused to take direction from lesser directors or appear with actors who might outshine him. He treated second and third wives coldly and cheated openly, even in his 50s. Clark refused to accept aging gracefully and forced younger roles, manipulating casting choices. His final film was The Misfits with Marilyn Monroe, and both in emotional and physical decline. Clark later died on the 16th of November, 1960. Number 2. Joan Crawford. Joan gained early film roles at MGM, heavily promoted by studio boss Louis B. Mayer. She built her image as the working man's symbol, accessible but untouchable. Lancaster said, Crawford didn't break the glass ceiling. Joan became one of MGM's biggest stars and dominated the box office. She was known for obsessively controlling her image, lighting, camera angles, co-stars, and even costumes of others. Joan fired maids and assistants frequently for disobedience. She alienated other actresses, including Bette Davis, leading to their legendary feud. Lancaster said she didn't act, she calculated. Every tear, every smile, and planned like a military strike. Joan adopted 4 children, primarily for publicity, according to insiders. Her daughter, Christina Crawford, later wrote Mommy Dearest, alleging abuse like psychological torment and humiliation. Lancaster said, Joan had no business raising children. She didn't raise them, but ruled them. 2 of her adopted children contested Christina's book, but both were cut out of her will. Joan faked injuries to undermine Davis and sabotaged her Oscar campaign. As her film roles started to dry up, she spiraled into alcoholism and became increasingly paranoid, lonely, and verbally abusive. She married Pepsi-Cola executive Alfred Steele and used his connections to maintain influence after her film career faded. Joan became known as the Dragon Lady in boardrooms and social circles. Lancaster said, "The Queen lost her court, but refused to give up the crown. She's always immaculately dressed, even in poverty or sickness." Joan manipulated the press and studios to maintain the perfect mother, glamorous icon, and working woman personality. Joan withdrew from public life after an unflattering photo surfaced in 1974. She died in 1977, alone in her New York apartment. Number 3. Errol Flynn. Errol was discovered in England and then moved to Hollywood. He got his breakout role in Captain Blood in 1935, which turned him into a global star almost overnight. Errol became the face of heroic, dashing masculinity. Studio execs adored his box office draw, but knew about his wild lifestyle and covered it up. Errol gained fame for his roles in The Adventures of Robin Hood, The Seahawk, and Dodge City. He became legendary for hard drinking and reckless living. Errol kept company with mobsters, arm dealers, and Nazis, many of whom he admired. He's known to use his fame to lure people. Warner Brothers buried press coverage and spun him as a victim of greedy girls and jealous boyfriends. He continued to star in films, but off-screen behavior escalated due to drug use. He claimed admiration for Hitler early in World War II, later denied it. FBI surveillance revealed associations with fascist sympathizers and Nazi agents. Errol used his yacht to ferry arms to Spanish fascists during the Civil Wars and allegedly for thrills. Biographer Charles Higham's 1980 book, Errol Flynn, The Untold Story, alleges he was a Nazi spy, and though this claim remains debated, Lancaster said, "We fought fascism overseas. He flirted with it in Beverly Hills." By the early 1950s, his looks were fading due to alcohol and hard living. Errol was starred in The Sun Also Rises and Too Much Too Soon, often slurring on set. He began a relationship with a 15-year-old Beverly Adland in his 40s. He died of a heart attack at age 50 in 1959. In the decades following, some tried to repaint him as tragic or misunderstood. Others, especially the women who came forward, were dismissed as fame seekers. Number 4. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie gained fame in silent comedies through Keystone and S&A Studios. He created the Tramp, a character that embodied charm, innocence, and rebellion, and was instantly iconic. By the 1920s, he was one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, directing, writing, producing, and scoring his own films. Lancaster said, "He made the world laugh, but off-screen, Chaplin controlled everyone like a puppet master." Charlie married Lita Grey. She later claimed he forced her into marriage and constantly cast and pursued extremely young actresses. Lita Grey's divorce filings in 1927 described Chaplin as cruel, emotionally abusive, and obsessive. Lancaster said, "He didn't love them, he possessed them, and when they stopped being young, he threw them away." Charlie used his power at United Artists to exert total creative and personal control. He's known for bullying actors, mistreating staff, and being emotionally distant even to his children. Charlie was involved with actress Joan Barry, who later sued him for paternity. The case ruined his public image, especially after Barry accused him of coercion and psychological abuse. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, investigated him for communism and moral indecency. While on a trip to promote Limelight, the U.S. government revoked his re-entry visa, citing his political views and moral character. Chaplin moved to Switzerland in self-imposed exile. Charlie became increasingly bitter, paranoid, and isolated in later years. Charlie married Una O'Neill, daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill, when she was 18 and he was 54. In 1972, he was invited back to the U.S. to receive an honorary Oscar and received a 12-minute standing ovation, which helped whitewash decades of scandal. The public remembered the mustache, the hat, and the cane, the abuse or manipulation, and died on the 25th of December, 1977. Number 5. Bette Davis. Bette rose to fame with films like Of Human Bondage in 1934 and Dangerous in 1935, for which she won her first Oscar and clashed repeatedly with Warner Brothers executives, demanding better roles, scripts, and pay. In 1936, she sued Warner Brothers, an almost unheard-of move for an actress at the time. Lost the case, but won more respect and leverage. Her success sent a message: ruthlessness pays. Lancaster said, "She fought the studio system with teeth bared, not for justice, but for dominance. She's known for manipulating co-stars, demanding rewrites, and freezing out actresses who threatened her spotlight." Bette had a reputation for gaslighting directors, controlling set environments, and spreading rumors about rivals. She frequently used charm in public interviews to mask backstage sabotage. Bette's most infamous rivalry, the legendary feud, originated from competition for roles, power, and publicity. She reached its peak during Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962. Bette planted weights in her costume to injure Joan during scenes. She campaigned against Joan during the Oscars. Bette publicly mocked Crawford's personal tragedies. Lancaster said, "Joan fought dirty, Bette fought surgical, cold, precise. She never stabbed you, she made you stab yourself." Bette had a deeply toxic relationship with her daughter, B.D. Hyman. B.D. later wrote a memoir, My Mother's Keeper, describing Bette as emotionally abusive, narcissistic, and manipulative. As she aged, Davis grew more controlling, more bitter, and more isolated. Bette became infamous for drinking on set and issuing veiled threats to producers and co-stars. She would sabotage younger actresses she saw as rivals, like Susan Hayward or Anne Baxter. Bette used the press masterfully to twist public perception in her favor. Davis shaped her own legend through interviews, memoirs, this and that, and television appearances. Bette died in France on the 6th of October, 1989, at age 81. Number 6. Spencer Tracy. Spencer married Louise Treadwell in 1923. They had a son, John, who was born deaf. Tracy never emotionally accepted his son's disability and rarely engaged with him. He almost immediately began cheating on Louise, disappearing for days on drinking benders. Studios kept his affairs and alcoholism quiet while grooming him for stardom. Spencer was signed with MGM, quickly became a leading man, and was known for naturalistic, understated performances: Captain Courageous, Boys Town, Father of the Bride. Privately, raging alcoholic, prone to disappearing for days, physically abusive in drunken states. Close associates said he could be violent and cruel, especially to women and staff. Lancaster said he wasn't the loud kind of monster. He was the kind that smiled at you in the morning and broke something at night. Spencer never divorced Louise, but lived separately for decades. He had numerous affairs, including Loretta Young, Ingrid Bergman, and Judy Garland. Each one ended with emotional devastation. Tracy would disappear, spiral, and blame the women. Spencer began a decades-long relationship with Katharine Hepburn during Woman of the Year in 1941. Public saw it as a deep, unshakable love, but the truth is he refused to marry her or acknowledge her in public. He was emotionally distant, manipulative, and deeply codependent. Hepburn later admitted she gave everything, got very little. Lancaster said they called it the greatest love story in Hollywood. She called it penance. Spencer's alcoholism worsened, he would vanish during shoots, and often had to be sobered up in hotel rooms with ice baths. MGM covered up bar fights, bouts of violence, and hospitalization. He physically assaulted assistants, drivers, and even directors. Off-camera violence tolerated because of his box office value. Spencer later died on the 10th of June, 1967. Number 7. Marlon Brando. Marlon trained at the Actors Studio under Stella Adler and introduced the method of acting to the mainstream. He broke through with A Streetcar Named Desire in 1951, which was raw, explosive, and erotic. Lancaster said, "He changed acting forever. Then he used that gift to manipulate everyone around him." Marlon was known for emotional mind games with lovers, co-stars, and directors. Marlon humiliated women, pushed friends away, and used emotional cruelty as a tool. Marlon slept with both men and women, often to exert dominance, not intimacy. He allegedly assaulted several female partners, widely whispered but never formally charged. He had 11 children by multiple women and admitted to fathering children he never acknowledged or supported. Marlon was described as emotionally abusive by exes, including Rita Moreno, who attempted suicide after his betrayal. He constantly clashed with directors and producers. On Mutiny and the Bounty in 1962, he caused massive budget overruns, rewrote scripts, and triggered crew mutinies. Marlon destroyed careers of writers and directors who didn't comply. On Apocalypse Now, he showed up obese, unprepared, and arrogant, derailed the production. Lancaster said, "He walked on set like a god, but gods are supposed to create, not ruin." His son, Christian Brando, shot and killed his sister's boyfriend, and his daughter, Cheyenne Brando, later died by suicide. Brando was absent, emotionally cold, and never took responsibility for the trauma in his household. Burt Lancaster said, "He ruined more lives off-screen than he ever saved to do it." Marlon became reclusive, grotesquely overweight, and bitter. Sued and feuded with friends, staff, and even his own family. Brandon continued to take large paychecks for minimal effort and later died in 2004, surrounded by estranged children and broken relationships. Number 8. Judy Garland. Judy began self-medicating: alcohol, uppers, downers, and sleeping pills. She suffered multiple breakdowns and attempted suicide more than once by her mid-20s. Judy grew increasingly difficult on set. No shows, breakdowns, and tantrums. MGM eventually dropped her in 1950. Lancaster said, "She was a box office miracle, but you never knew if she'd show up broken." Judy married 5 times. Almost every relationship ended in chaos, betrayal, or abuse. She was known to manipulate those around her, like children's, especially Liza Minnelli, describing living in fear of her mood swings. Friends and managers said she used suicide threats as leverage. Judy frequently lived, blamed others, and fabricated tragedies for sympathy or control. Burt Lancaster said, "Judy was a victim, but victims can become villains, and she did. Every time the lights went out." Post A Star Is Born in 1954, her career became unstable and canceled shows, onstage meltdowns, and financial ruin. She became addicted to applause, constantly needing attention, then resenting those who gave it. Judy promoters described her as a nightmare to work with, missing rehearsals, verbally abusive, and incapable of consistency. Her eldest daughter, Liza Minnelli, and other children grew up around neglect, drug use, and emotional manipulation. Lorna Luft, another daughter, said Judy would turn from affectionate to verbally vicious in minutes and always needed someone to blame. Judy, later accused by some of encouraging codependence and martyring herself for emotional control. Her career was hanging by threads and moved from show to show, husband to husband. She physically deteriorated, emotionally unstable, and financially destitute. Judy frequently lashed out at fans, lovers, and even her own children, and refused help, insulted those who tried. Judy later died in 1969 from an accidental overdose of barbiturates at the age of 47. Number 9. Laurence Olivier. Laurence made a name in Hollywood with Wuthering Heights in 1939 and Rebecca in 1940. He married actress Vivien Leigh in 1940, which was a relationship fueled by ego, passion, and destruction. Laurence privately referred to American actors as vulgar amateurs, except when collaborating to boost his own brand. Burt Lancaster said he smiled for the camera, but behind the smile, contempt for the audience, for the press, for his own peers. Laurence married Leigh during her battles with bipolar disorder, depression, and emotional instability. Despite public support, Olivier privately belittled her, referred to her as mad, and began open affairs during her breakdowns. Laurence allegedly had her institutionalized, gaslit her, and distanced himself as her career faltered. After her death, he recast the story as tragic love, but never acknowledged his role in her decline. Lancaster said, "He didn't leave her in sickness, he left her to sickness and called it mercy." He became head of the National Theatre in London and used his position to block rivals, dictate casting, and enforce his personal artistic vision. Laurence was known for dismissing actors who upstaged him even if they were better for the role. He had a toxic feud with Peter O'Toole and others, often sabotaging younger talents, and was said to give dead-eyed approval to actors he saw as beneath him, then privately mocked them. Lancaster said, "Olivier didn't mentor, he manipulated. He didn't teach, he eliminated." Laurence allegedly engaged in secret relationships with men, including possibly Danny Kaye, though never publicly acknowledged. He used his great British actor personality as a fortress to hide private truths. Close confidants said he lived in constant fear of exposure and used cruelty to control the narrative. He later died in 1989. Number 10. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid rose to international fame with Casablanca in 1942, followed by Gaslight in 1944 and Spellbound in 1945. She carefully cultivated image as wholesome, devoted wife, serious actress, and anti-Hollywood hedonism. Secretly, she was already resentful of the system and crafting an escape. Ingrid mocked co-stars she found less intellectual. She disdained the press while using them strategically and maintained a rigid hierarchy in personal relationships. Lancaster said, "She played pure, but off-camera, she made sure you knew who was beneath her." Ingrid met an Italian director, Roberto Rossellini, and fell in love during correspondence. She abandoned her husband, Peter Lindstrom, and young daughter to pursue Rossellini. Condemned by the U.S. Senate, denounced as a powerful influence for evil by religious groups, she didn't just leave, she erased her former life. Ingrid refused her daughter contact for years. Lancaster said she didn't fall in love, she set fire to everything and called it liberation. Ingrid continued working with Rossellini, making a series of critically panned films. Ingrid dismissed American critics as moral hypocrites while refusing to take accountability. She's known for berating assistants, freezing out rivals, and dismissing her own family as distractions. Ingrid had twin daughters with Rossellini, but her son Roberto would later describe an emotionally absent, controlling mother. Lancaster said, "She said she was free now, but those close to her saw the chains, and she was the one tightening them." Ingrid re-emerged in Hollywood with Anastasia in 1956 and won an Oscar. She rebranded herself as an artist misunderstood, spinning the scandal into an act of courage. Behind the scenes, she cut off collaborators who reminded her of her past and burned friendships with actresses like Anna Magnani and later even turned on Rossellini. She later died in 1982. Number 11. John Wayne. John achieved stardom with Stagecoach in 1939, and They Were Expendable in 1945. John marked as a war hero despite never serving in World War II, unlike many of his contemporaries, including Lancaster himself. John rejected the draft, citing family obligations and career commitments. Lancaster said, He played soldiers, we were soldiers, but he wore the uniform better in costume. John stated that he believed in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility. He referred to Native Americans as selfishly keeping this great land to themselves. John opposed civil rights, supported McCarthyism, and called homosexuality perverted. He's also known for making racist remarks on set, particularly during the Alamo and the Green Berets. Lancaster said, "John wasn't playing a bigot, he was the real thing, and just louder when the camera stopped." John was known for his explosive temper, bullying behavior toward co-stars, especially women and younger actors. John made life miserable for directors who challenged him. He was allegedly physically aggressive on set when his authority was questioned. John worked to blacklist actors and filmmakers with left-leaning politics. Lancaster said he didn't like competition, he liked control. If he couldn't outact you, he'd outlast you or ruin you. John co-founded the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals and helped root out communists during the Hollywood blacklist era. He used influence to destroy careers of actors, screenwriters, and directors with progressive leanings. John supported Vietnam War propaganda films, including The Green Berets, which was widely criticized as militaristic fantasy. John hated films like High Noon and a film Lancaster admired and called it un-American for showing moral ambiguity in heroes. John married 3 times and had multiple affairs throughout his life. John died of cancer in 1979. Number 12. Mickey Rooney. By the age of 19, #1 box office star in the world, Mickey is given unchecked access to wealth, women, and influence. Mickey engaged in constant affairs, even while underage. His behavior was excused because of his talent and draw. He demanded special treatment and pay raises even as a teen. Lancaster said, "He was a child in a man's body with a child's conscience and man's appetites." Mickey married 8 times, including Ava Gardner and Martha Vickers. His affairs numbered in the hundreds, if not thousands, by his own bragging. Mickey described by multiple ex-wives as verbally abusive, controlling, and unfaithful. He left women emotionally wrecked or bankrupt. Children from multiple marriages report being neglected and humiliated and abandoned. Some never saw a dime of child support. In the 1950s, as fame faded, Rooney became angrier, more volatile, and financially reckless. He blew through his multi-million-dollar fortune on gambling, women, and failed productions. Mickey had multiple fights on set, blacklisted by directors who found him toxic and uncontrollable. Lancaster said, "Mickey lost everything, but never once looked in the mirror and blamed everyone, like his wives, studios, God, but never himself." His most infamous role, Mr. Yunyoshi in Breakfast at Tiffany's in 1961, where he wore yellow face, fake buck teeth, and a grotesque accent. Mickey defended the performance for decades, calling critics too sensitive. He privately expressed racist views, including toward the African American, Asian, and immigrant communities. Mickey believed Hollywood was becoming too political for real Americans like me. Lancaster said, "He made a joke out of entire cultures, and when the world caught up, he laughed louder." Later in life, Mickey claimed he was a victim of elder abuse by his 8th wife, Jan Rooney, and stepson. Several family members claim Mickey manipulated the narrative, using the abuse claim to regain attention and cut others out of inheritance. Mickey later died in 2014. Number 13. Hedy Lamarr. She married Fritz Mandl, an Austrian munitions tycoon with Nazi sympathies. Hedy attempted to erase ecstasy from history, even buying up film copies. Hedy later claimed she was kept as a prisoner, but others said she attended dinners with top fascists and played the perfect hostess while absorbing knowledge of weapon systems and encryption. Lancaster said she dined with monsters, smiled like an angel, and took notes. In 1938, she escaped her marriage, fled to London, then signed with MGM's Louis B. Mayer after demanding double the contract he initially offered. Hedy rebranded herself as Hedy Lamarr and presented to America as the most beautiful woman in the world. She quickly became unapproachable, distant, and feared on set, controlling lighting, demanding retakes, refusing direction from male co-stars, and refused interviews unless scripted. Colleagues said she was inhumanly cold, strategic, never spontaneous, and utterly uninterested in anyone else's soul. Lancaster said, "She wasn't mysterious, she was methodical. There's a difference." During World War II, she co-created a frequency hopping device with composer George Antheil, which was a groundbreaking invention. She designed to prevent Nazi torpedo interference. Hedy was ignored by the Navy at the time, but later became the foundation for Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth. However, in later years, Lamarr took full credit, downplaying Antheil's contribution. She never tried to develop the technology herself after filing the patent, rewrote the narrative to elevate her role, telling conflicted stories in interviews. Hedy married 6 times, almost all husbands describing her as controlling, unreachable, and emotionally manipulative. She accused some of abuse, and others claim she weaponized and silenced. Hedy often discarded partners after she no longer needed them financially or socially. Her children described her as cold and neglectful. Her son, James Lamarr Loder, was given up for adoption and later disowned after reuniting. Hedy later died in the year 2000, completely reclusive. Number 14. Orson Welles. Orson emerged as a prodigy, excelling in theater and radio, culminating with Citizen Kane at age 25. His first film became a landmark, yet critics and studios resented his rapid ascent. Orson famously assaulted his partner, John Houseman, during a heated argument, ending their relationship and revealing a volatile side beneath the brilliance. Welles clashed with both Hollywood's establishment and collaborators. His perfectionism and ego made working with him destructive. He often harshly criticized peers, privately calling Laurence Olivier stupid, Spencer Tracy hateful, and Bette Davis intolerable, all from private recordings. He fiercely fought for creative control, but the magnificent Ambersons was drastically cut by RKO, triggering his deep resentment toward the studio system. His later project, The Other Side of the Wind, remained unfinished due to funding issues with his compulsive indecision. Reports from friends and colleagues note his frequent self-sabotage, derailing deals with clients and funders through impulsive tantrums. Orson married 3 times: Virginia Nicholson, Rita Hayworth, divorced amid rampant infidelity, and Italian actress Paola Mori. He maintained a decades-long affair with Oja Kodar, creating emotional chaos. His daughter described him as a great creative force, but a dad who wasn't there. Biographer Simon Callow noted Welles' deep insecurities, even leading him to hidden identity crisis and stage fright. In later life, Welles became overweight, embittered, and considered a relic, surviving on talk shows and commercials. He was described as a lovable, yet also recklessly rude, and engulfed by ego. His friend, Harry Jaglom, recalled attempts to help Welles with funding and stability, repeatedly derailed by Welles' own indecision and conflation of art and control. Orson later died in 1985 due to myocardial infarction. Thanks for watching Past Paradise, where Hollywood legends come home. If you enjoyed today's look into Burt Lancaster's list of the 14 most evil actors of Hollywood's golden age, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. Got a star or story you want next? Drop it in the comments. Until then, keep the nostalgia alive, only on Past Paradise.